Not long ago, I was a corporate sales director, unknown, overlooked, no network, and unfulfilled. But when I discovered the power of personal branding, storytelling, and confidence, everything changed. I went from being invisible to a two-time best-selling author, international TEDx speaker, and top global podcast host, reaching thousands every year. And I want the same transformation for you to be seen, heard, and recognized as the thought leader you truly are. From TEDx stages to top podcasts and even TV segments, I help entrepreneurs, authors, and speakers amplify their message and build unshakable confidence. Visit bestbranding.solutions and let's build your dream together. What if the secret to success wasn't just talent or hard work, but unshakable confidence? Welcome to Grasp Confidence, the podcast where visionary thought leaders, speakers, and entrepreneurs unlock the mindset and strategies for lasting success. I'm your host, Tara LaFon Gooch, CEO, two-time best-selling author, and international TEDx speaker, and I can't wait to help you step into the most powerful version of yourself. Let's dive in. Meet Dave Jones, a former pro hockey player, U.S. Air Force veteran, founder of an 8-figure Christian agency, and performance coach to elite athletes. From his R7 process to mental toughness training, Dave shares how faith and vision fuel leadership, business growth, and confidence. Tune in now to learn how to apply these principles in your life, business, and leadership. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tara. I'm super excited to be here, and I'm excited.
It's exciting. You have had quite a background. Pro hockey player. You have a couple businesses that you're running. Of course, we're both in North Carolina, so we connected about that.
Yep.
Mutual passion for marketing and branding. I love everything about what you do, but something stood out to me as I was reading your bio, as we were getting to know each other offline. Your primary focus in your business, in your life, is your faith.
That's it.
I love that. It's such a powerful thing because, so many people may be afraid to share it, right? They're afraid, if I share about my faith, will others look negatively? Will they judge me? Will I lose followers? I hear that a lot. Will I lose my job? People are, constantly like living in this state of fear and uncertainty. So I would love to unpack a little bit. Has this always been something that you're very vocal about and passionate about?
I think it's definitely grown over the years. I have had 7 concussions. My last one was pretty traumatic.
Oh my.
And 2 before that was traumatic as well, but the last one was bad. And I don't know if it was God waking me up or what, but I started this Christian agency back in November 2001 off of prayer. And as I built the agency and as we became more successful, I just, it is what it is. It's my story. I unabashedly say I'm a right-wing Bible-toting, gun-carrying Christian. That's who I am. And that's just what it is. And my story is a testimony of how Christ came into my life and it just changed everything. It just changed everything. And so that vertical of glorifying the Lord with my talents and my abilities, I am very passionate about. In fact, it fueled me getting my doctorate because I really wanted to know, not that I wanted the title, I just really wanted to chase a terminal degree in psychology. I think that, the study of human behavior is critical to understanding, where you need to go in life. Not you, Tara, but like, us as, And because the more we understand how we think and how we feel and how we behave is something that if we understand, our negativity and our positivity, we're able to then begin the process of being on the peak a lot more. Not all the time, just a lot more.
Mm. You're speaking on a topic that really hits home for me as well, and a lot of our listeners. I'm a firm believer we were created in the image of God. And as someone, we're all image bearers. So if you think of yourself as that way, you're an image bearer. That's a huge level of responsibility. And I believe that as image bearers, we are called to live a life of excellence.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Dave?
I think we get excellence confused with perfection. I work
Mm.
with a lot of professional hockey players, on their mental toughness. And I think we think that we can achieve perfection. And I just coach that perfection's a lie. It's a lie from the devil. So
Yeah.
that Satan comes to kill, steal, and destroy. We have to be aware and mindful that there is an adversary out there that's there to distract us. If you look at the devil's logo, it's arrows in every direction. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Never
yeah,
thought about it that way.
yeah. So you got to understand who you're against. For me, and that's what I'm saying about being mindful, being
Mhm.
understanding that the way I'm acting right now is why am I acting this way? And so I have an acronym for this. It's called FLAP. So your fear, lust, anger, pride gets in the way of your peak performance. So if we're able to identify our fear, our lust, our anger, and our pride, be mindful of it. Say, I'm being prideful in the situation. Why am I doing this? I don't have to be this way, right? I can lay that down, or I can lay my lust down. Now, lust is not a popular conversation at all, and I'm not talking about sexual lust here. Normally, sometimes it can be sexual lust, but a lot of times it's possession lust. I have to have a bigger house. I have to have a faster car. I have to have a newer car. What will people think of me if I don't have you know, for guys, this driver, this putter, kind of thing. I always have to have newer, bigger, and faster. And so that lust kind of side of things is very powerful, and it's a tool of the devil.
Wow.
I, I also coach on the side of peaks and valleys. Everything is peaks and valleys. Your relationship, in this case, your husband, peaks and valleys. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, right? Sometimes you're arguing, sometimes you're getting along. Your finances, they're up and they're down. The ocean goes in and out. And so our life is about peaks and valleys, stress, confidence, peaks and valleys. And so what I like to say that, good thing about being on a peak is that things are pretty awesome. Bad thing about a peak is you're going into a valley.
Mhm.
Valleys stink. They're not fun. But the good thing about a valley is you're going to be on a peak. And so, how do we manage our mental, emotional, and physical and spiritual peaks and valleys? That's sort of, I would say, a big part of how we do life together.
There was a time when I barely spoke about my faith, but this year I decided to be bolder than ever. God placed a calling on my life, and when I finally embraced it, doors opened. From best selling books to stages, I found the confidence to walk in His purpose. Now I want the same for you. At the From Calling to Confidence Christian Women's Retreat, you'll discover clarity, deepen your faith, and gain the courage to step into your God given calling. This is happening in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico on January 16th through 19th, 2026. And ladies, we have 3 spots left. That's it. So when they're gone, they are gone. Reserve yours today and visit taralafangooch.com/retreat for more information. I love that. And in every part of that is a lesson. There's a famous quote. It's attributed to King Solomon. It's not in the Bible, but it's attributed to him. And it's this too shall pass, right? So when we're in that valley, that quote gives us comfort. And we know that this too shall pass. But, the same reflective, uh, thought comes in when we're at that peak. This too shall pass.
That's
And
it.
right, it gives
Yeah.
us kind of pause because at any point in time, life can change. So it's not necessarily about, chasing, right? Chasing perfection, chasing the next thing, chasing, 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 because then to your point, we're kind of pointed in all directions. We're not really focused, and we're maybe even, lustful towards like that next big thing or goal or
Mhm.
something like that. And we're idolizing something. So this is a balance, right? Because again, I'm a high performer. Our audiences are high performers. You're a high performer. I guess the question is, how do we make sense of it all? How do we balance this so that we're not living in a life of constantly chasing and validating and looking for external things for our own approval and happiness?
So this is great because this is why I love sports. So sports to me is a petri dish of emotions. When you see an athlete, what I call low emotional intelligence, when they take life in their own hands and basically say, I'm going to cause this foul, like I'm a hockey guy, so I'm going to slash somebody in the back of the legs or I'm going to punch them in the face. They're low EI. And so what truly happens in sport is you see the true character of a man or woman come out when the pressure happens. So you can see like, whatever's in the heart is going to come out. And so for those of us that don't play sports and are running organizations, when your income or your revenue is low and your employees are quitting on you, this is like an athlete being low EI, right? It's like, okay, what is really going to happen in my valley? Am I going to glorify the Lord and say, this too shall pass? And I'm excited about the challenge, Lord. Why have you put me here? There's something positive that's going to come out of this. What's your mindset? Or is it, I'm a loser? Nobody likes me. I don't know what I'm doing. I have all this doubt, fear, and anxiety and stress. And so to me, it's a productive channel or an unproductive channel. It is very black and white. It can be if
Mm,
you choose it to be. And so this goes back to this concept of mindfulness. Am I mindful of my flap? Am I mindful that I'm in a valley? Okay, if I'm mindful and I truly accept where I'm at for what's real, then I can move on. The Holy Spirit and God can work in your life when you are mindful of the situation of what it really is. But if you say, it's fine, it's gonna be okay, I'm not, you know what? I'm not really in a valley right now. That's where this flap comes in. That's
mm.
where your fear, lust, anger, pride is protecting you from something, whatever that something is.
How did you get so wise? Like, were you always this way, right? Or was this more of an evolution of Dave going through your life and you discovered these principles through Hill and Valley? Was there a point when it wasn't always this way, Dave?
I've been called a lot of things, Tara. Wise is probably not one of them.
Well, you're
So,
welcome.
thank you. When I was 25, um, I didn't like myself. I hated myself. I thought that if I were to put everybody else down, that I would look good. And yeah, we all know that that clearly doesn't work. And I met a guy, of all places, I met a guy in Taco Bell. And a guy in Taco Bell just approached me and said, "Hey man, like, we just started kicking off a conversation." And it's a true story. He happened to be in Amway. And he said, if you don't like yourself, you should turn, this is before like social media and everything. He said, you should turn off the TV and invest in yourself. Here are 30 books for you to read this year. And Tara, I took him up on that offer. And I read those books. I when I tell this story, I can remember the townhome we were living in and the chair that I was sitting in, the light that I had and the glasses that I had because to read. And I did. I sat in that chair for about 2 years and I kind of turned everything else off and I just focused on myself. I read 30 books.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that began the process of just reading and writing and mindfulness and messing things up some more and maybe having a little bit of success here and a lot of failure and just it just kind of kept on going and just kept on reading and writing and changing and growing and looking at that. And I'm still a long ways, I got a long ways to go as we all do. But I just started reading,
Oh,
honestly.
me too. It I felt at one point, depressed, anxious. Does my life have a purpose? Why am I here?
Yeah.
And I just constantly felt distracted, pulled in so many directions, and ultimately like deluded, right? And unfulfilled. And I really started my mindfulness practices as well, reading books, and, you know, introspectiveness, and just trying to figure out, okay, there's all the knowledge in the world, right? At our fingertips. It really can't be any easier than
Mhm.
ever than what it is right now to get the information, but it's about applying it. It's not necessarily about more information because I think there's a ton of information out there in this world, but the information's great. It's the application of the information that counts, though, right? We can have all the information. We can listen to the books. We can watch YouTube videos. We can do all the things. But until we look at ourselves in the mirror and take that introspective lens and say, okay, now how can I apply this? How can I change? For me, it was limiting the distractions in my life,
Mhm.
getting off social media for a while, focusing my time on books. And that's honestly why one of the reasons I started this podcast. I had gotten off of social media for a while and wanted to start my own thing a little bit, and something that really added a ton of value. And I kept it going because, well, one, I really enjoyed it and loved it. But two, it was something that didn't drain me. I think that's really important as well.
Mhm.
Understanding how our emotional responses when we're thinking about something, when we're doing something. And again, just paying attention, right? And being intentional. What do you think? Has that been a mirror to your experience as well?
Yeah, so I think what you're explaining there is you had a lot of courage, Tara.
Mm,
There's
thank you.
something inside of you said, "You know what? I want something different." Maybe it was out of frustration of where you were going and how you were glorifying the Lord with your talents and abilities. There's always lots of reasons why we wanna change. Um, and so I think you expressed a level of courage there, and you said, "You know, I need to do something about myself," which wasn't popular. And that's really hard for a lot of people to say, "You know what? I need to do something different here." And so I kind of feel like we go to school, we do what the world tells us to do, right? Go to school, get good grades, get a job. You get paid for that job based on your skill.
Mm,
That skill that you're getting paid for is not fulfilling. God's economy, I could be totally wrong. This is kind of, the way I, live. My God's economy is about fulfillment, about self actualization and glorifying Him. So I go to school, I learn, right? I want to be fulfilled so I can glorify Him. So that fulfillment, that passion that you have in your heart, whether it was through some crazy accident or situation or, just inherently, in your DNA is a philosophical debate. It's probably a different podcast, but there's something inside of us that wants to be part of a bigger picture.
I
And
couldn't agree
that's that
more.
fulfillment. That's the fulfillment side.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And, for me, the depth of fulfillment came when I really developed a relationship with God,
Yeah.
and not just learned about God, but communicated with Him intentionally daily, and then started to live in His Word. That was really important. I just recently launched a solo episode, and the solo episode that I launched is about, being created in His image and finding your purpose in life. And I likened us to a glove, right? A glove is made in the image of a hand, but without the hand inside of it, the glove is lifeless.
Mhm.
It still has a purpose, but the hand fulfills the purpose. So the glove, it can't live up to its original design without the hand inside of it. And just like us, we're made in His image.
Yeah.
So in order for us to have true fulfillment, be aligned with our purpose, our highest purpose, is to have God inside of us. And we can do that by having a relationship with God, by reading scripture, by acting on his word. Again, living in his word, not just reading it, but applying it, right?
Yeah, that's powerful. I work with a lot of different Christian ministries, and I bring this up as we go through R7 and really discovering the vision of what the organization is. And so I've if anything I do really well, I think it's vision. Like I understand vision, like in terms of the structure, the sentence structure, the
Ooh.
culture of it. Um, and so, this is where I truly believe that this acronym of FLAP gets in your way, of who you're becoming. And it's so hard to lay that down because the world has given us such easy access to engage your flap. Some of the stuff we watch on Netflix and Amazon, like it's okay. Like the rest of the world's watching it too, but you shouldn't be watching it. So you have your eye gate and your ear gate that you're getting these images in, and then that just it comes out of you eventually. And so what I also talk about from a Christian perspective, which I think is fun, you know, is that we have this language that we use as Christianese, and I call it obligatory religious phraseology. So I shorten that with ORP, an obligatory religious phraseology. So transforming your life to be the best version of yourself, or transforming ministries with a spirit of excellence, like these words that we use that sound really amazing. I was working with a church a couple years ago, and they said, our vision here is to help people become fully devoted followers of Jesus Christ. And I went, oh man, that's so beautiful. But what does that mean? And who's the judge of that? And so, like, to become a fully devoted follower, like that's between you, Tara. That's between you and your relationship with the Lord. Of you're fully devoted. You don't need another man telling you, "Hey, this is what you need to do." Right? Because then they're the judge and they're the authority figure when that's the wrong, like God's the judge. The Bible is the standard, is the guardrails. And so we put all this judgment on people because we think you should be living this way. When the reality of it is we really don't know. I mean, we have an idea. The Bible gives us those guardrails. Um, so when we're talking about being fulfilled in his image, to me, it's something very granular. Like I
Mm,
love excellence, right? I
yeah.
love the way you brought up excellence. Like excellence, I have a term for or definition for excellence that because I've worked with it a lot over the years, and so have you. But it's doing the best that you can with the current resources available to you in this moment. So, example, like a graphic designer. A graphic designer may have an hour to work on a brochure. So she's gonna do the best that they can with the current resource available to them in this moment. So I only had an hour, right? But if you say, okay, you're gonna have 15 hours, right? That brochure is gonna look different than it would if it was just an hour. So it's doing the best that you can with the current resources available to you in this moment. That's excellence.
I love that. It's so attainable.
Yeah, so there's no RPs in that, right? There's no RPs
Right.
in it. And so it's like, okay, so when you look at that and you go, wow, this is not a very good brochure. Well, let's peel it back. Let's have some empathy here and say, okay, what were the circumstances? Oh, they only had an hour. They did pretty good for an hour,
Mhm.
versus 10 hours. And so it's the same thing. Like, okay, I don't feel good today, right? I'm not at my best. I'm really tired today. Well, how can you be excellent in this moment? So with the energy that I have, I'm going to do the best that I can with the current situation. For athletes, my arm hurts. My arm is sore. My leg. Okay, how can we be the best version of ourselves with the current resource available to us in this moment? Right?
Yeah.
So it just goes down the line. Whereas perfection is something different. Perfection is something that only one person attained, and that was Jesus. And you're not going to be Jesus. you know? And so like it's just a lie. You just can't hit perfection. So we just manage our peaks and valleys as best we can, and we allow this flap to be mindful of it. I'm saying it isn't super easy, and it's just not, but that's the idea.
I love it. Well, it certainly it feels a lot more relaxing and
Mhm.
attainable, right? Than I feel like a lot of people have really broken it down before. So I definitely appreciate that. And it's not always easy, but I think, like everything, it's one moment at a time, one day at a time. When
Yeah.
when you're high performer, high achiever, it's you constantly are looking, a couple miles down the road. And sometimes some things seem, how can this even be possible?
Mm.
But I like what you said, if we just break it down and how can I be excellent with at just this moment,
Yeah.
right? Just this moment. And you just take it moment by moment. And all of a sudden, again, compound activity, right? Over time, it develops a habit of, these moments compounded over time. All of a sudden, it's a habit of excellence.
With high performers, I get this question all the time. Um, do I oh, my camera just turned off, 1 second.
No worries. There we go. I'll
Sorry
just
about that.
make a cut. We'll make a cut there.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries.
Um, yeah, so for high performers, I get this question all the time. They say, um, "How do I get rid of my stress? How do I get rid of my anxiety?" And I'm like, "Well, good luck. You don't." And that in itself, like you said, is relaxing. It's relaxing because the truth it is you don't. What you do is you manage your stress. You manage your anxiety. You take anxiety and say, "Okay, I want to learn everything about anxiety and what it entails." Anxiety is a monster. Anxiety is like a big tool of the devil. And so like we take that and we say, "Okay, I'm anxious. Okay, what are we going to do in this anxious moment? How are we going to get through this moment by moment, Tara?" Which is beautiful, right? And say, "Okay, what are some techniques?" Well, we know that anxiety is about increased somatic. So there's somatic anxiety and cognitive anxiety. So somatic anxiety is when your heart rate's up, your sweaty palms, right? And so the best way is to do what's called a psychological sigh. That's how you get rid of anxiety. You get your breathing under control. You put yourself
Ooh.
in a relaxive state.
Can we demonstrate that?
A psychological sigh?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a little weird, but it definitely works. So psychological sigh is basically a deep breath, uh, followed by another deep breath. So it's a so
Okay.
and so the psychological sigh, the important of that is the exhale is longer than the inhale. So you wanna breathe it in and get all that air out. That also cures hiccups as well. So if you have a hiccup issue, you can do a psychological sigh. So if you do 3 to 5 of those, and a lot of times when we don't know how to do it, this is an extensive breathing, but exercise, but it'll help. So when you breathe, if you do the opposite,
Mm.
what is that doing? Right? That's increasing my anxiety. That's making my heart rate go up. So if we have that, right, that lowers our anxiety. So 3 to 5 of those, it'll bring you down.
I was always one to say, "Oh, breath work, what is that? Come on," right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm very analytical, and I had someone explain it to me, and exactly what you're saying, right? So if we're in a fight, or flee, freeze, right,
Yeah.
scenario, our breath does change. So, for example, if we're being chased by a tiger, our breath is going to be dramatically different than it is if we're relaxed. So, typically, we're
Yeah.
struggling, right, to breathe if we're in that situation. And what is that telling our body? It's telling our body that we are in a panic mode, that you need that cortisol so you can survive.
Yeah.
You need that adrenaline. But if you're breathing in through your nose and then out through your mouth and you're exhaling everything, that
Mhm.
really does calm down your body, your nervous system. It sets your mind at ease. And there is a huge scientific basis for breath work
Mhm.
that before I dismissed outright. And I finally had to get a psychologist to actually give me the
Mm.
scientific backing of this until I really understood it. And then when I started practicing it, I said, "Well, I'm sorry for ever smudging it, right?" But
Yeah.
there is a huge scientific reasoning behind this. I definitely encourage people, if you're feeling like you're in that state of anxiety, if your heart's palpitating a little bit, if you feel perspiration, right? If you are uneasy and maybe you're even not digesting food correctly,
Mhm.
like if it's prolonged for, stress over a certain period of time, I've heard that happening to people as well. Again, pay attention to these physical signs. I'm not saying breath work is your only answer, but it's the simplest, easiest way to kind of get started in that process, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's super easy to do. Um, it is kinda weird to do it, and take that moment, but it will benefit you long term, and that's how we manage anxiety, both somatic and cognitive.
Mm.
So again, you don't get rid of it, you manage it. You're mindful of it.
Yeah, I think that first step is the mindfulness
Yeah.
aspect of it, right? And again, just realizing the signs, how your body feels. And specifically with high performers, a lot of us have been in that state for so long that we've ignored a lot of those signs,
Mhm.
right? So that's, you're in a state of familiarity at that point, right?
Yeah, so this isn't popular with high performers, but I'm gonna say it. Usually high performers, the higher the performer, the more dysfunction.
Yeah. That's
And so what's happening there is, right, we're masking. And I certainly fall into this category. We're masking because, the more stuff I have, the more success I am. How dare you ask me, right? Don't ask me. Look at me. Are you seriously challenging me right now? That's the attitude. That's the subconscious attitude. And so for high performers, especially, well, I have to be careful here because if, like, especially in sports, like, that dysfunction, if we take that away and replace it with Jesus, they may lose their income, because now it's something bigger. Um, but we also, know that there's life after sport. And so we have to have a vision for what it means that our identity isn't in what we do, you know.
mm,
So, but in organizations, it's just understanding, okay, what am I trying to mask here? When I say organizations, organizational leaders, what am I trying to mask here? And being honest with yourself, then we can move the dial. And usually, I would say, wives are amazing at this. Wives can see it in guys. Um, they're phenomenal this way. They have that perspective. I don't think men have it about their wives. I think wives have it about the men. I don't think that we have that level of wisdom, honestly. Just being real.
I knew I liked you, Dave.
Yeah.
I love that. But you said something too. It was a gold nugget. I want to make sure it didn't slip through anybody. Your identity is not what you do.
Yeah.
You said that so quick. I just wanted to make sure everyone heard it
Mhm.
because we can really, really anchor our identities, our self worth, our entire essence of being a human being on our title, on our job description, on our salary. And we are so, so much more, And again, I'm thinking of professional athletes too. I have several friends that are athletes. And when you anchor your identity on that athlete, what happens if you get let go
Mhm.
from the team? And then all of a sudden, your identity gets displaced along with it, right?
Yeah. It's real. I mean, and it's so hard because you have to, like, you just have to be fully engaged. Like, and usually to be a pro athlete, you have to be fully engaged for a long time. And so when that ends, it's just tough, to be successful in that. And I could say that's true about organizational leader as well. I have to protect myself with M is good and my identity in M is good because, I've had it for 25 years and it can very well be what I am and what I do and, have that identity. Because it's a Christian organization, I look at it and go, okay, I'm glorifying the Lord and I can do this in other ways. It doesn't have to be through my company. Um, but I don't want it to be, something else, but it could be someday. And so that's my identity. And I really try to focus. Although I don't like the valleys, they're really focused on when I am in a valley that I want to glorify him. Right? That's the true testament of who we are, I think.
Yeah. It's anchoring your identity in the one who gave it to you.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow, so much wisdom. I feel like I could talk to you for an hour, but
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you too long. Um, I would just love to hear, a final, if you have a piece of advice for anybody who's listening to right now, what would you say to somebody who, maybe they're struggling, maybe they're struggling with their identity, but putting their identity in the wrong places. Maybe they're struggling with a vision of what they want in the future because they can't see past where they are right now, that valley. What would you say to that person, Dave?
I'm probably going to say something that's very cliche here, but I really feel from the bottom of my heart it's true that God loves you. God's got a plan for your life. You don't know what that is. Nobody does.
Yeah,
And trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord, and you're gonna mess up, and that's okay, right? That's okay. And your stress and your anxiety that everybody deals with, if you're dealing with that as well, everybody deals with it. Just be mindful of it. And it's something we're all going through. We're all going through life together, and there's an adversary out there that's wants to confuse you. And the more you're aligned with God, the better your life can be. It may not be in the immediate right now, but it will be.
amen.
Amen.
Amen. I don't have anything else
Uh,
to add. That was perfect.
uh,
I think that's so important too. There is an adversary out there seeking to destroy and devour, and don't let him.
that's it.
Don't.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at sports, like we know there's an opponent, and you study
Yes,
your opponent. Why not look at it from that fresh perspective? But there's something else out there that's trying to confuse you. If you look at that and you identify who that enemy could be spiritually, then now I think we've got a plan.
that's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow. Dave, where can everyone find you online? Where can they look you up so they can learn more about you and the work that you do?
Yeah, so I would just encourage somebody to go to emisgood.com.
msgood.com. Love
Yeah.
it. Wonderful. Well, Dave, thank you so much for being a guest on the show today. And thank
Thank you
you
for
for
having me.
everyone who tuned in to this episode of Grasp Confidence. Guys, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave a review on Apple. Today, I'm proud to say this. We just hit 1.4K reviews on Spotify, but we can
Wow.
use a little love on Apple. So go ahead and write me a personal review based on this episode. What was your favorite takeaway based on what Dr. Dave said? I would love to hear your thoughts on Apple. We love hearing from our listeners from all over the globe, and that includes you. We will see you on the next episode. Take care.